All right, guys, we need to talk. If you are holding a green card right now, or if you're close to getting one, drop everything and pay attention because the landscape just shifted dramatically. You've probably seen the headlines popping up everywhere in the last few hours, talking about a massive shakeup in US immigration law. And let's be honest, whenever we see breaking news and immigration in the same sentence, our stomachs drop. But this time, the panic isn't just hype. I've been digging through the details of this latest development since the news broke, speaking with legal experts and analyzing what the actually says versus what the fearmongers are spreading on social media. The reality is somewhere in between, and for many lawful permanent residents, it is absolutely shocking. We're talking about changes that could affect your ability to travel, your timeline for citizenship, and in some extreme cases, your right to stay in the country even if you've played by the rules for years. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty of what just happened, if you want to stay ahead of these rapid immigration changes that actually affect your daily life, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the notification bell, because as we've seen today, things can literally change overnight, and I want to make sure you have the facts first. Okay, so let's set the stage. For the longest time, there's been a general feeling that once you get that physical green card in your hand, you've made it. You're safe. Sure, you're not a citizen yet, but you're a permanent resident. The word permanent does a lot of heavy lifting there, giving people a sense of security that the hardest part is behind them. But what this new legislative push and policy shift has done is shatter that illusion of permanence for a lot of people. The buzz in the legal community right now is intense because this isn't just about border security or temporary visas. This is aiming directly at the standards of conduct and maintenance for existing residents. What we are looking at is a significant tightening of the ropes. Without getting bogged down in legal jargon right off the bat, the core of this new development is a reevaluation of what it means to maintain status. For years, there were certain gray areas, minor slip-ups, extended times abroad, small bureaucratic errors that USCIS might have overlooked or issued a slap on the wrist for. The shock that is rippling through the green card community right now is the realization that those gray areas are rapidly turning black and white. The administration and lawmakers are under immense pressure to show they are serious on immigration enforcement, and unfortunately, one of the easiest ways to show those metrics is by scrutinizing the people already in the system who have the most to lose. This has people terrified because it feels retroactive. You might be sitting there thinking, wait, I did that thing 3 years ago and my lawyer said it was fine back then. Why is it a problem now? That's the terrifying part of immigration law. Policy interpretations can shift, and suddenly your past actions are being viewed through a much stricter lens today. It's this feeling of having the rug pulled out from under you just when you thought you were standing on solid ground that is causing so much anxiety. I want to pause here for a second and take the temperature of the room. Let me know down in the comments. How long have you had your green card? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed does this kind of news make you? It helps me understand what you guys are going through so I can tailor this information better. The biggest takeaway from this initial breaking news isn't just one specific clause, but a complete change in attitude regarding enforcement. We are moving from a system that was relatively passive once you obtained status to one that is becoming actively demonstrative. They are looking for reasons to say no at the naturalization stage or even at the green card renewal stage based on criteria that used to be considered minor. This means the burden of proof that you deserve to stay here is getting heavier on your shoulders, even years after you were initially approved. Now, I know that all sounds incredibly vague and ominous, and I don't want to leave you hanging with just anxiety. You need specifics. You need to know exactly what changed so you can look at your own situation and see if you are in the crosshairs. Through my analysis of this new shift, I've identified 3 major pillars that have just been impacted that every single green card holder needs to know about immediately. These aren't minor tweaks. These are fundamental changes to how your life in the US is evaluated by the authorities. We're going to break down exactly what those 3 things are, step by step, in the next part of this video, so keep watching. Now, I promised you specifics, and this is where things get really real. The first major pillar that has been completely upended is the concept of unrestricted travel for green card holders. For decades, the rule of thumb was pretty simple. Don't stay outside the US for more than 6 months, and definitely not more than a year, or you'd risk being seen as abandoning your residency. But under this new shift, specifically driven by recent executive actions and a massive expansion of what the government calls continuous vetting, that old 6-month rule is no longer the safe harbor it used to be. The government has just expanded the list of high-risk countries under presidential proclamations 10949 and 10998. We are now looking at a list that has grown to 39 countries. If you are a green card holder who originally came from one of these countries, even if you've lived here for 5, 10, or 15 years, you are now subject to what's being called enhanced re-entry screening. This means every time you cross that border, you aren't just being waved through. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, has been given new directives to look back at your original application and your activity while abroad with a level of scrutiny we haven't seen in the modern era. They are looking for any inconsistency between what you said on your green card application years ago and what your life looks like now. But it's not just about where you're from. It's about the biometric exit-exit system that just went into full effect. For the first time, the US is truly tracking departures with the same intensity as arrivals. They now have a digital ticker on every single day you spend outside the country. Why does this matter? Because they are using this data to challenge your intent to reside in the US at the moment you try to naturalize. If you've been doing the 5 months out, 1 month in dance to keep your green card alive, the authorities are now being instructed to view that as a red flag for fraud. They want to see that the US is truly your primary home, and they are using travel logs as a weapon to prove it isn't. Second, and this is the part that is sending shockwaves through the legal community, is the retroactive re-review policy. This is unprecedented. USCIS has issued a memorandum stating that they are beginning a comprehensive re-review of certain immigration benefits approved on or after January 20th, 2021. Think about that for a second. If you got your green card in the last 5 years, the government is essentially saying we might want to take a second look at that. They've even created a specialized unit for this, and they're hiring thousands of new officers, nicknamed Homeland Defenders, whose specific job is to hunt for fraud and threats to public safety in already approved files. The shock here is the finality of a green card is being called into question. Usually, once you're approved, you only worry if you commit a major crime. But now, they are looking for misrepresentations or undisclosed information from your initial filing. Maybe it's a job you forgot to list, or an old arrest that was dismissed but not fully documented. In the past, these were minor issues. Today, they are grounds for a notice to appear, NTA, in immigration court. I can't stress this enough. If you are in this window of time, you need to make sure your paperwork is 100% accurate. If you're finding this information helpful and maybe a little scary, which is okay, please share this video with your community. There are so many people who have no idea this re-review is happening, and they could be walking into a trap when they go to renew their card or apply for citizenship. Let's keep each other informed. The third pillar, and perhaps the most controversial one, involves digital vetting and social media mining. We used to think our private lives on Facebook, X, or Instagram were separate from our immigration status. That era is officially over. The Department of State and USCIS have updated their policy manuals to include online presence as a factor in determining moral character and adherence to American values. This is a huge shift. They are looking for anything they deem anti-American ideology or support for organizations that the current administration has flagged. The shock here is how subjective it is. What one officer sees as a political opinion, another might see as a security risk. They are now instructing officers to review social media history going back years. For green card holders looking to become citizens, this is a massive hurdle. Your N400 interview might now include questions about a post you made 3 years ago or a group you followed online. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it is the current reality of the 2026 immigration landscape. And we can't ignore the financial side of this. The public charge rule, which has always been a bit of a political football, has been tightened to a point of extreme friction. A new legislative push, often referred to in policy circles as part of the broader H.R. 1 framework, is aiming to restrict access to certain health benefits like Medicaid and even marketplace subsidies for lawful permanent residents. The logic they're using is that if you rely on these services, you might not be self-sufficient, which could trigger a review of your status. It's creating a fear of help where people who are legally entitled to benefits are too afraid to use them for fear of losing their green card. When you add all of this up, the travel restrictions, the retroactive reviews, the social media monitoring, and the financial scrutiny, it paints a very different picture of what it means to be a green card holder in 2026. It's no longer a set it and forget it status. It is a status that requires constant maintenance and a high level of awareness. You have to be your own best advocate because the system is no longer leaning in your favor. I know this is a lot to process. It feels like the goalposts are constantly moving, and for those of you who have worked so hard to build a life here, it feels incredibly unfair. But knowledge is power. Knowing that they are looking at your social media means you can be careful. Knowing they are re-reviewing files means you can gather your original documents and make sure everything is in order. We're not done yet, though. There is one specific trap in these new laws that is catching even the most perfect green card holders off guard. It has to do with the automatic revocation clauses that were tucked away in the fine print of the latest budget and enforcement acts. If you don't know about this one specific trigger, you could lose your status without even realizing it until it's too late. We're going to cover that, along with the exact steps you should take right now to protect yourself in the final part of this video. Stick with me, because what we cover next is the most important part of this entire situation. This brings us to the most critical part of this entire update, the automatic revocation trap that is catching even the most cautious green card holders off guard. Under the newest 2026 enforcement guidelines, the government is moving away from a model where they only check your record once every 10 years when you renew. Instead, they've implemented what they call continuous vetting. This means that the moment any data point in a federal or state database shifts, it can trigger an automatic review of your residency status. First, let's talk about the address change trap. For years, failing to file an AR-11 within 10 days of moving was technically a violation, but almost nobody was ever punished for it. That has changed. With the new Homeland Defenders Unit at USCIS, they are now cross-referencing USPS change of address records and DMV data against your immigration file. If they find you've moved and didn't tell them, it's now being used as evidence of willful failure to comply with registration requirements. This can lead to a notice to appear in immigration court, or, at the very least, a massive headache during your citizenship interview. It sounds small, but in 2026, the small things are the biggest risks. Second, the financial public charge trap has been set. As we've seen with the recent H.R. 1 legislative push, the definition of what makes someone a burden to the state has been expanded to a point of extreme discretion. It's not just about cash assistance anymore. Under the newest rules, if you are a green card holder and you, or even your dependents, utilize certain non-cash benefits, like subsidized housing or specific nutrition programs, officers are being given the authority to question your self-sufficiency. The shock for many families is that they are doing what is legal today, only to find out it might be held against them tomorrow when they try to naturalize. The government's goal is fiscal responsibility, but for the green card holder, it feels like a loyalty test based on your bank account. Third, and perhaps most importantly, is the prudential revocation of travel authorization. If you have any pending application, whether it's a green card renewal or a naturalization N-400, and you belong to one of the 39 high-risk countries currently under the January 2026 Hold and Review Memorandum, your right to travel is effectively frozen. Even if you have a valid physical card, CBP has been authorized to pause your re-entry if they see any derogatory information, which now includes something as subjective as anti-American sentiment found on your public social media profiles. Remember, the new rule requires you to set your profiles to public during these review periods. One wrong post, one misinterpreted like, or one association with a group the administration has flagged could result in your card being seized at the airport. So what do you actually do with all this information? How do you protect yourself in this new high-stakes environment? First, you need to conduct a social media audit. Go through your history and remove anything that could be misinterpreted as extremist or hostile to U.S. interests. It sounds like self-censorship, and it is, but the stakes are your life in this country. Second, never, and I mean never, travel outside the U.S. right now without a deep consultation with an immigration attorney, especially if you have an older arrest record, even if it was dismissed. The continuous vetting system will see that arrest the moment you scan your passport at the border. Third, keep a meticulous paper trail of ties. Keep copies of your leases, tax returns, and utility bills. If you are challenged on your residency or your intent to stay, you need to be able to bury them in evidence that the U.S. is your only home. I know this feels like a lot of weight to carry. It's a lot of pressure for people who just want to live their lives, work hard, and provide for their families. But by staying informed and being proactive, you can navigate these changes. Don't let the shock turn into paralysis. Let it turn into preparation. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up. It tells the algorithm that this is important information that needs to reach more people. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I'll be tracking these policy shifts every single day as they develop through 2026, and I'll be here to walk you through whatever comes next. Share this video with your groups, your family, and your community. Someone might need to hear this before they book that flight or file that next form. Now, I want to hear from you one last time. Given everything we've talked about, the travel bans, the social media vetting, and the retroactive reviews, what is your biggest concern right now? Drop a comment below. I read as many as I can, and your questions often become the basis for my next deep dive video. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.